Welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, April 4th edition of the pod. And Jake, as the season is winding down, the Ducks only have, a few games left. The season is really coming to an end. The nice thing about these shows that we're doing is that they're nice and light, not a lot to talk about. We can get into more deep dive hockey stuff. The games are uneventful. I mean, it's pretty great.
We can even start off with some nonsense. So why don't I just start with this? How do you feel about hot dogs?
Hot dogs are good.
Yeah, aren't they great? I mean, they really are. I love it with some ketchup, some mustard, maybe some onions.
Where's this going?
Maybe some jalapenos. I mean, we found out this week that Tyson Nash likes his hot dogs served with some fists, some punches. That's what we learned.
Wow. Okay. That's where that was going.
Yeah.
Should also point out, I have a big announcement. Usually on the pod, I am drinking either water or maybe the occasional alcoholic beverage. I mean, today, orange juice, heavy pulp, as it should be.
Oh, I've been told that we can't smile on this episode. It's not good for the game.
Yeah, make sure you don't smirk.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever you do.
Oh, smirking's the worst. Smirking's the worst. Hot dogs can't have hot dogs.
Oh, okay. So if you haven't, if you, the dear listener, have not picked up on this so far, a lot of sarcasm going around the show. We're trying to keep it somewhat light because a pretty unfortunate thing happened Friday night between the Anaheim Ducks and the Arizona Coyotes. We're going to go over that. We're going to talk about the incident. We're going to talk about what we think about the incident itself, the fallout, the what ifs, the reaction from all across the hockey world, because everyone and their mother has an opinion on this, which we're going to talk about all of it. It should be interesting. Hopefully you guys are ready. And then after that, maybe we'll talk about the games themselves and what happened here and there. But the game yesterday against Edmonton I don't think anyone's itching to talk about that.
No, I was there, and I already forgot what happened.
Yeah, well, let's see. Yeah, I can't even tell you who scored. Oh, Zach Aston-Reese.
McDavid scored a bunch.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you just meant who scored the game, not scored for the Ducks.
Well, yeah, Zach Aston-Reese scored. Anyway, so let's just get into the incident.
Yep.
I think it's time we stop beating around the bush. So in the third period, the Ducks game against Arizona Friday night, the Ducks are leading 5-0, and this is a game in which Trevor Zegras does it again, scores a Michigan goal, which I think we should point out was, in my opinion, his most impressive one yet, because he had to wrap it around his own teammate, Sonny Milano, and good on Milano for getting out of the way successfully. So highlight reel goal there, and this is just a game in which the Ducks are really dominant. They're controlling the play. They're kind of doing whatever they want in the offensive zone because, as it turns out, the Arizona Coyotes are really, really bad and have nothing left to play for, and I feel like the collective motivation of that group is incredibly low. As you can imagine, I mean, their franchise has turned into a laughingstock. They're going to have a college arena next season, so all sorts of bad. The Ducks are up 5-0, 5:41 left in the third period. You have something to say?
No, go ahead. I'll save it for after our whole discussion. Something about the game, about a line in the game, but we'll do that after.
Yeah. My job on this show is to rein you in.
Yep.
To hold you back. It's like
I held myself back there.
So 5-0, and Sonny Milano brings it in down the left wing, tries to wrap it around the Coyotes netminder. Puck gets loose, and it gets stuck underneath him. Troy Terry skates in and tries to get the loose puck.
Trevor Zegras.
Did I say Troy Terry?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so Trevor Zegras comes in and tries to get the rebound because still playing. Like, the game's not over. Game's not over till it's over. And then takes one little extra poke. And that was the extra poke heard around the world. So before we get into the skirmish that ensues, your thoughts on the poke, because the poke is really important for a lot of people's arguments regarding this.
Oh, it's the poke hurt around the world. I mean, it's whatever. I mean,
how you feel about the poke kind of determines a lot here.
And Dallas Aikens actually brought up a really good point, and I think in some of his quotes after the game or whenever Eric Stevens wrote his article, but essentially they are trying to establish good habits with this team. They have gone on an 11-game losing streak, and just because they're up, they don't want to essentially let bad habits come into their game. And so one of those is that you go until the whistle's blown.
Play to the whistle.
Play to the whistle. The whistle was never blown. And Trevor Zegras, I mean, from the angle, we can't really see it, but it seems like he saw the puck. And so he tries to go.
He said it was loose.
Yeah, he said it was loose. He tries to go for it. It maybe was a little late, but that happens in almost every game. And the whistle goes, and that's kind of it. And then he stops.
Yep. And then after that, so he gives the extra little poke, but doesn't actually touch the goalie. It's just like a little motion because he thinks it might be loose. And then, of course, once so who was it that actually – so Beagle crossed him in the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting that wrong? Okay. So Jay Beagle, who will be a main character in this story.
He's the main antagonist.
You might say he's the villain of the story. Just might. And gives a pretty healthy cross-check to Trevor Zegras' back, unsuspecting, right? I mean, it's a penalty. It's an infraction. It's not allowed, like, against the rules, the whole 9 yards. After that, though, so let's talk about the cross-check. We're going through this beat by beat. So the cross-check happens. You don't see it as that bad. You think it's just a penalty.
Yeah, to me, it's just a penalty. It's a dumb thing. It's hockey culture. It's the fact you can't poke the goalie. Supposedly, actually, he was given a penalty on that. I learned that today, that he actually did get a penalty for cross-checking.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, I completely missed that part of it, but it kind of came, I think, well after that because the ref didn't actually have his arm up right away on that. But, I mean, that's a dumb thing that happens, I think, in every game. It's a dumb thing that happens after whistles. There's going to be that type of stuff. It's a penalty. It's not something that I think I would lose sleep over. I think that's the best way to put it. It's just something that happens. It's not necessarily something that is it's painful, but not that dangerous, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think it's kind of reckless and dangerous.
Okay, fair.
Personally. Because I think coming in like that, two-hander across the back, player has no idea you're coming.
Fair.
Like, you can hurt a guy like that. But I also see your point, which is that it's just a penalty.
Yeah.
There's not really much more to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that happens, and then all hell breaks loose, basically. So the number one thing here that we're looking at is the fact that Troy Terry jumps into the fray. And Troy Terry goes after Jay Beagle because Jay Beagle just cross-checked Trevor Zegras in the back. And Zegras is on the ground and doesn't look to be doing too well. So this is the key part. This is the part that, again, like how you interpret these facts is really important to your overall conclusion. Troy Terry comes in kind of like almost like a side-swiping, curling, looping motion, like a looping punch. But really, I think what he's trying to do is get his arm around Jay Beagle just so they can get in that scrum that usually ensues.
Yeah, I mean, the way I saw it was Jay Beagle's hand was kind of high and was going for Terry's face. Terry kind of swipes at his arm to kind of get it out of his face. Not really a whole lot more than that.
I think Terry's just trying to grab a hold of him. And,
maybe.
Troy Terry is maybe not the most this isn't really his wheelhouse.
Yeah,
his extracurriculars.
I think we can both agree that it wasn't a punch. That's the thing a lot of people focused on in this is that, quote-unquote, Terry threw the first punch. That wasn't a punch.
Yeah, although, I mean, you could see that in the heat of the moment, the other player who's already pissed off might see that as like, oh, this guy's trying to take a swipe at me. Now, Beagle and Terry get locked up. They are just locking up, and then all of a sudden, Terry starts grabbing on to Jay Beagle, and Beagle already has his gloves off at this point. So Beagle's gloves have been dropped. Terry's gloves never come off. Terry's stick never even leaves his hands.
He's still holding a stick, yeah.
Right, exactly. And so Beagle's gloves have been off, and there's this whole thing in the hockey culture about the code, right? And one big thing is that both guys' gloves have to be off for it to be a fight. You even, like, you when you hear the mic'd up segments, right? And you hear guys talking about you want to fight, they'll kind of establish it before it happens. You want to go, you want one, whatever it is. And so as they're locking up and Beagle's gloves are off, they just continue to wrestle. And then all of a sudden, as they kind of get back into the forefront and Terry's hands are in front of him, Beagle just starts wailing away on Terry's face. Like, again, no punch has actually been thrown. And it's actually like the one little looping shot we were talking about, Terry, that happened at the very beginning. This hasn't happened for a little while now. So Beagle just starts wailing away, just smashing in Terry's face. And the linesmen and the officials are just watching this happening. Like, there's no reaction from the official
They're
crew.
legitimately standing directly next to it. Like, it's not as if they're far away where it's like it would take them a while to get there, that type of thing.
No, they're right there.
If you watch it, they're standing directly next to it. It's like one of them is trying to put his arm in but doesn't fully go all in, trying to stop it. It's really weird.
And then I think really, to me, just a sickening kind of scary sight is that Terry just drops.
Yeah.
Just falls to the ice. And I don't know if he went unconscious or not. I don't know if we have clarification on that, but he got his bell rung. And I mean, you saw the picture after the game. His entire eye, like above and below his eye, is just busted up. We don't have any word yet on if there's any kind of fractures in there because the swelling is so severe. But that's the incident. I mean, that's really it. So to recap, Trevor Zegras comes in. It's a 5-0 game. 5 minutes left in the game. Maybe gives that extra little poke. Okay, fine. You know, you probably shouldn't do that, but whatever. Jay Beagle gives him a healthy cross-check. Penalty gets called, and that should probably be the end of it. But Terry, seeing his teammate down, comes in, tries to lock up with Jay Beagle, and not trying to fight, just the usual scrum that you see after a whistle. And Beagle just goes berserk. I mean, literally, that's the only thing I can think of is that he just starts seeing red and has his gloves off. Well, I mean, there's no indication that Terry wants to fight outside of trying to lock up. And they've been locked up for a few seconds at that point. Terry is not trying to get loose or throw shots, and he just starts wailing away on him. And, I mean, you have a player who's injured now in Troy Terry, who has missed a game, who probably isn't going to play, tomorrow? There's a game Tuesday night? Wednesday night, probably isn't going to play. Has to be concussed. I mean, I probably shouldn't be speculating openly, but you get punched in the face a few times, your brain's probably going to need some time to heal there. And Jay Beagle has faced absolutely zero supplemental discipline.
We should also add that kind of in the ensuing fracas after all of this, Beagle tries to get at Drysdale as Drysdale also tries to get at him, and everyone on the Ducks is essentially trying to get at him. I guess the only player on the Coyotes that is kind of in the right here, it seems like, is Louis Eriksson, who's kind of essentially trying to calm things down as best he can. That's really the only thing that I can kind of say at the end of that. But yeah, go on. Sorry, I want to add that because people in our Twitch chat were mentioning the Drysdale part.
Well, yeah, and for whatever reason, I mean, Beagle is trying to take shots at Drysdale as well.
Yeah.
So let's just stick to the facts right now. No other need for any kind of bigger picture stuff. Just your thoughts on what actually happened on the ice. Just the events that transpired.
It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. There's no place for it in the game. No place for any of it. We now have a player on the Ducks who's having a career season, 30-plus goal scorer, is potentially going to be getting an extension that now is injured. There is, I mean, here's the exact quote from Dallas Aikens on this. We're not out of the woods yet with Troy Terry. His eye is still really swollen. We're trying to assess the damage that was done there, and it's tough when it's that swollen. We're hoping that comes down over the next few days. It does sound like he did avoid any fractures by the sound. Orbital bone fractures from the sounds of it. But, I mean, here's the scary part of it. Eye injuries are no joke. And that is something that it's not just going to impact your hockey career. That impacts your life forever. And this play, and we'll get into more of the minutia behind all of it and every kind of overall hockey culture type of ideas, but this play that had nothing to do with scoring or defend or stopping a goal has resulted in a player that is blossoming into into the best season of his career, potentially into a star player for the Ducks. It could potentially have a life-altering injury for him, and that's disgusting to me, and not something that is okay. I think that's the best way to put it, is that I'm not okay with this being in the game. I'm not okay with this play being there. I'm not okay with any of this being there.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember watching it because I was watching it live, and I remember seeing the blood that was kind of dripping out from Terry. I was already just confused and disgusted by what happened, but then seeing the blood, it just took it to a different level because now it's like, oh man, someone got hurt because of this. Someone got badly hurt. And you know, the fact that Jay Beagle was continuing to try, like, even after this, after he's already taken down Terry, he's skating around trying to get a pound of flesh of whoever he can. And my overall assessment of that situation is that I think Jay Beagle had like a breakdown, like a mental breakdown.
Yeah, he saw
like
red.
It's just not normal. Like the reaction he had is by no means a reciprocal reaction to what Trevor Zegras did. I don't care that it's a 5-0 game. You can get your pound of flesh, get your cross check in, fine, whatever. Like hockey's stupid, like hockey culture's stupid, whatever. But to then do what he did to Troy Terry, and it honestly looked like if he had his way, Jamie Drysdale may have been next. So I'm questioning his mental state in that moment. It legitimately seems like he had an episode, or he just has no self-control. And I mean, because the episode would kind of let him off the hook.
Yeah, and
it just seems like he has no self-control over his emotions. You know, in any game, sure, and you can be mad that you're getting blown out, but that just was not commensurate at all.
And kind of to your point on that, he's someone I think everyone said he's had like 3 or 4 career fights before that.
Well, like there's the fight he's been in.
Yeah, the Aaron Asham fight.
Where he got knocked out. And I mean, look, we don't talk that much about CTE these days in hockey, but getting punched in the face, getting hit over and over, that affects your mind, that affects your brain. And in that moment, he did not strike me as a kind of patient, even-tempered guy.
Yeah.
Seemed to be quite the opposite, if anything.
Yeah, and so just overall disgusting that was the response. I mean, we can just briefly get into, I guess, his comments on this that came out today, that he basically said more or less as he didn't like the play by Zegras, and so he came in and gave him a shot, and then he's like, basically, when a fight happens, and you just kind of let it, and you just go, and he's like, and he was basically said, there's a way you can enter a scrum if you don't want to fight, and a way that you can enter a scrum if you do, and Terry came in essentially wanting to have a fight, and that's where it happened, and then preached accountability of all things, and basically said, I'm being held accountable for mine, and he's like, and they needed to be also, type of deal. I don't know if it was that harsh of a way. I don't know if I'm misrepresenting him, so go please seek out his words, so it's not like I'm misrepresenting exactly what he's saying, but accountability was something he really stuck on for a second before kind of adding some more, and to me that was extremely frustrating, because accountability for your actions in this situation is like we just talked about. This is a player that's now injured, is going to be missing multiple games. This is a player that could have hit the 40-goal plateau potentially this year, and now he's missing games because of this. And in a play that was completely unwarranted, not something that should be in the game, and you've gone on scot-free. You don't need to. You're not getting suspended. You're not getting fined. You're getting your full paycheck because of this. That's not accountability. So don't you dare preach accountability.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, let's just call it what it is. Jay Beagle injured Troy Terry.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's robbing him of just games. He's robbing him of time to increase his own value.
He's potentially robbing him of essentially his vision. Like, let's not, like, maybe I'm being a bit hyperbolic there.
Yeah, I don't think that's in play right now.
Okay, fair.
As far as we know.
But a potential life-changing injury, depending on how the eye is. Like, that is not, like, being hyperbolic with that. It's a potential life-changing injury.
I don't think he got him in the eye, though. I think it's above and below the eye.
Fair. But
I don't think he got the eye. It's still dangerous.
Yes.
Still dangerous.
It's the fact that they're waiting to hear about, or Terry's going to be seeing eye specialist on Monday. That was the thing that stuck out to me as being scary about it. Because anything with the eye is scary.
Absolutely. And it's 100% worth checking out. We just don't know that quite yet.
Yeah. And so, fair. I probably should walk that back a little. So
Beagle's comments were 100% sadly what you would expect, which is that, they basically he blamed the Ducks for what happened. He took no accountability for what he did. I mean, these are the comments we have available. The media coverage in Arizona is pretty light. So we didn't really get a whole lot of the context there. Maybe he showed some remorse, but anyway. And so the other side of this coin from the Duck side is Trevor Zegras' comments after the game. And Trevor Zegras did not hold back whatsoever on what happened. And I think that everything he said was true. I mean, I don't think Zegras exaggerated in saying that it was an embarrassment for Jay Beagle. I mean, he wouldn't actually name him, which is also kind of funny.
Oh, that part was actually hilarious.
Love that level of petty.
Yeah.
But just really going in on the fact that Beagle embarrassed himself, that he's picking on a skilled player. I mean, not at all in his kind of weight class, if you want to call it. And he even said that it would be an embarrassment for the league, that it was an embarrassment for the league. I mean, these are not like he's going after everybody.
I'm surprised he didn't get fined.
Same. And I think the reason he didn't get fined, maybe it just didn't actually violate any rules, but does the NHL know it's kind of in the wrong here?
Maybe.
Like is this kind of a tacit admission of guilt that they have the means to slow this stuff down and they don't? So I love the energy from Zegras. I love the fact that he came out and kind of put his neck on the line, criticizing everybody and anybody involved to stick up for his teammate, Troy Terry, who clearly he cares a lot about and was really sad and sickened to see get badly hurt in a game for nothing.
And he wasn't afraid to mince his words. And I think that this is a guy that is quickly becoming not just the face of the Ducks on the ice, not just the face of the Ducks off the ice, but becoming one of the faces of the league for not being afraid to speak out. And I think that is something so important to have in this league. And I think that while this whole situation sucks and it shouldn't happen, and I think that if you were to kind of look back on the situation, kind of we'll get into more of that minutia, but I think the ideal situation is this never happens again. I guess one thing that I'll say is slightly positive, that we have Trevor Zegras speaking out against the league and not being afraid to do that.
Yeah, and we'll get more into it, but at the end of the day, this is a league issue.
Yeah,
the onus is on the NHL to protect its players, and it fails at that pretty routinely. Now, from a Ducks perspective, though, I think the number one thing that has come out of this that people have talked about, that even Teemu Selanne, chimed in on, is the fact that the Ducks did trade Nick Delorier at the trade deadline, and there are people, and by people I mean dozens, tens, whatever number of people on Twitter. Lots of people that I had the pleasure of hearing from over the weekend, including today, who, to a man, to a woman, believe 100% that this would not have happened if Nick Delorier was on the team. Like, that this just wouldn't have happened. That if Nick Delorier was on the roster, because let's face it, he probably wouldn't have been on the ice in this situation, that Jay Beagle doesn't even think to do this. That Jay Beagle never takes a punch at Troy Terry, never takes a cross. And it's just like, maybe that's true. Let's just play the hypothetical game. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's possible. But here's the problem with that line. First off, does nothing for anyone. Like, Terry's hurt. The situation sucks. And also, you can't prove it. There's no way to prove what you're saying.
Well,
the only piece of evidence that people will use is saying, well, it didn't happen when Nick Delorier was here. Okay, well, this situation didn't arise when Nick Delorier was here. The Ducks weren't up 5-0 in a game.
Trevor Zegras got hurt with Nick Delorier on his line.
Right, exactly. So, and slew-footed by PK Subban. And so it's just like the confidence in which people speak about this hypothetical scenario is kind of fascinating to me.
And let me just kind of walk through this. Let's just say Nick Delorier is still on the team. He was on Zegras' line for what? 2 games, 3 games, something like that, and then
a handful of games.
Never was back there. So more likely than not, he's not on the ice for this situation.
Yeah, so that's fact number 1 against this case.
Yeah,
that Delorier's not even on the ice.
Yeah, and then the other thing is the secondary part is, let's say this all happens. Jay Beagle's then tossed from the game. People would then you send out Nick Delorier and he sends that message to the best player on the other team. My issue there is then we're in this ever like continuing cycle of bullshittiness of if you're pissed about this play, which all of us are. I think to a man, every Ducks fan is pissed that this play happened. It shouldn't be in the league. It shouldn't have happened to Troy Terry. Then you can't say Nick Delorier needs to go and do that to the other team. Because that's essentially saying this crappy play that happened to our player, we now need that to happen to the other team. That's being hypocritical. It's not something that's okay, and that's not essentially how you deal with this situation. That's not you. It's not this. One crime doesn't warrant another crime. That's not how it works. And so you can't just go and say this is how Nick Delorier would have stopped it, because it would have then happened after that. And so I think that's a key thing to understand here, is that Nick Deslauriers wouldn't have stopped this from happening to the Ducks. I think that's pretty clear.
Or he might have, or he like it's just we don't know.
Fair. But if this happens,
it's unknowable.
If this happens, then he goes and does that to their star player. Then the next game they go and do it to the Duck star player because they then bring in a big body guy.
Or he just tries to fight Jay Beagle. Let's just say.
But Jay Beagle was tossed.
No, but like in the next game that they play each other.
Yeah, but like it's this never-ending cycle that never stops.
My question though is just okay. Let's say that the crowd that thinks legitimately that Deslauriers' presence stops this from happening. Let's say that it does happen, but Deslauriers is on the roster, and then he goes out and fights Beagle next time around. What has been gained from that? What does that change? The injury still happened, and they fought in a staged fight. And who knows? Like, does that mean it's never going to happen again? That all of a sudden that Terry and Zegras and whoever are immune from any cheap shots?
Yeah,
it's just a weird argument.
Yeah, and I think that's also the other point is like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have essentially someone that can then, because essentially we're just saying this didn't. Deslauriers probably, you're right. We can't say one way or the other, but this could happen with Deslauriers. It could not happen. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the result would be him going and fighting this guy. What would you rather have? That happen or this not happen at all and a guarantee that this wouldn't happen at all? And I think the guarantee is the way that you want to go.
Right, exactly. And so I guess to wrap up on the actual incident, because now the next chapter in all of this is the fallout, because the fallout's going to be a doozy. I just want to reiterate that I think, first off, hoping that Troy Terry is going to be okay.
Yes.
I mean that's number one. We still don't have great clarity on that, which sucks. You would love to already know one way or another, but that's the nature of this injury. And my second point would just be that this shows that the culture of the sport is just fundamentally, and I should say the sport, the culture of NHL hockey, because this doesn't happen at every level. The culture of NHL hockey, pro men's hockey is just broken. I mean, the fact that any of this crap, any of these extracurriculars, that there's this kind of like unwritten score that people are counting up, that people would legitimately rather that they want to see their guy get him back, get that pound of flesh back on Jay Beagle, that any of this is so important is just, it's crazy to me. Like, what are we talking? Like, I can enjoy a great fight. I'll go watch UFC or go watch boxing. I don't need this in hockey. I don't think anyone is benefiting from this right now. And you can say all you want about how, this brings casual fans in, blah, blah, blah. Maybe there was a time, yes, where this was a driver of interest for the NHL. But you know what's the biggest driver of interest that's going to be the biggest driver of interest, if not just now, but in the future, is the skill of the game, the superstars. Those are the guys who are driving the downloads, who are driving the views, the clicks that all of the younger generation is seeing. The kids that are playing hockey that are going to become paying customers and whose families are going to become paying customers, they're not looking up fight highlights. They're looking at, Deeks, Datsuki and Deeks. They're looking at Trevor Zegras' Michigan. They're looking at Austin Matthews. Like, that is what's driving interest, and you can look at all the social stats that prove it. The NHL doesn't even market fighting anymore. And there's some legalities there that could be driving that.
Maybe that's a sign that this shouldn't be something that's there.
But exactly. And so I just think that if you're of the mind that we need fighting in the game, that it's just this thing that's always been there, therefore it has to continue to be there, I think we're starting to see that the game is just passing that by. I mean, that guys don't come in. Like, for example, Troy Terry played college hockey. You can't fight in college hockey. And so, of course, he's not going to be prepared and not have the best handle on it. Like, just the guys that are coming in, it's getting phased out slowly, and I think it's going to, at some point, accelerate.
Okay. Can we jump into there's a couple of big points that I want to touch on this. Yeah. So I think the first one is a lot of people bring up enforcers, and we touched on that a little bit with Deslauriers. But I think one thing that was brought up to me on the weekend, I think is a really good and important point to make here. Mm-hmm. There used to be a whole lot more enforcers in the league. And the Ducks had some great ones. They had, in terms of that role, Stu Grimson, Todd Ewan, these guys that were kind of known as being these big bads, these big scary dudes that you would have on your team that were out there to essentially stop stuff from happening. Ask Paul Kariya how that worked with Gary Suter. If that stopped Gary Suter from cross-checking him in the face. And I'm not saying that, like, basically what I'm trying to say here is that there have always been cheap shots in the game. Enforcers haven't stopped that. And you could even also look back. People have this romanticized views of the 80s and 90s that there weren't cheap shots due to enforcers. There always were. There always have been cheap shots, and they were even worse back then. And even in the 2000s, headshots were running rampant. And even though they were enforcers, you look at Matt Cook, all of the things he did, Rafi Torres, all those guys. These guys were like, Sidney Crosby missed games off his career, or not years off his career. And there were more enforcers back then. Like, none of that really stopped it. And like that guy Bobsky brings up Teemu Selanne and Craig Lugwood. Teemu Selanne was elbowed by Craig Lugwood 3 weeks after Kariya and Suter. And so kind of this romanticized view of enforcers stopping things in the past, and so them going out of the game is the reason why these types of things are happening. It's allowing the rats in the game, that type of thing. It's just not true. It's just revisionist history.
And so beyond the fact that I don't think, fisticuffs really have a place in the game anymore, here's the other thing. This wasn't even a fight.
No.
What happened with, like that's the thing we need to really make sure that we're clear about, is that what happened between Jay Beagle and Troy Terry was not a fight. It went against every code. He was not a willing combatant. His gloves were not off. There was nothing that he did that indicated that he was going to fight. So the people that are just going out of their way to make this point that Terry was asking for it or whatever, you're a moron. I don't know what else to say.
Wow, just going for it. All right. So we have a whole lot more to say on this, obviously, but I think it's time for a quick word from our sponsor. So this show is brought to you by Green Chef. So Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company that makes eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals. Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preference. So they have their keto and paleo options to give you premium proteins and vital veggies you need to conquer your day. With fresh produce, premium proteins, and organic ingredients you can trust, Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating well, and their Mediterranean preference packs together fresh flavors and premium proteins. It's also very sustainable. You can enjoy your greens while being green. Green Chef is the most sustainable meal kit, offsetting 100% of the plastics in every box and 100% of their carbon emissions and their carbon footprint. It's also easy. They make cooking easy so you can spend less time stressing and more time enjoying delicious home-cooked meals. Green Chef's pre-made and pre-measured sauces, dressings, and spices get you more shelf-curated flavor in less time. You can avoid long lines at the grocery store. Green Chef is so convenient with pre-portioned, easy-to-follow recipes that are delivered right to your door. And they offer 24 always-changing recipes to choose from every week. So Felix, what's on the menu this week for Green Chef?
Yeah, weekly menu bulgogi burgers. So everyone that knows me knows I like a good hamburger, cheeseburger every now and then. Unfortunately, the choices I make are not always the healthiest, with all due respect to a fine Southern California establishment. But with this bulgogi burger, you can actually keep track of exactly what you're putting into your body, quality ingredients. It's got a sweet and savory sauce, essential to traditional Korean barbecue, and it's got a nice little kimchi salad on the side, some nice rice in the actual burger itself.
Wow.
So if you're a fan of Korean food, Korean barbecue, highly recommend this.
Yeah, that sounds delicious, and that's something that I'm definitely going to need to try shortly. Also, one thing I want to mention, they've added this recently. They have their fast and fit option, which is ideal for eating well when you're strapped for time. And the recipes are under 700 calories, and they're ready to eat in 25 minutes or less. So if you're someone that's into fitness, that is something that would be absolutely fantastic for you and really work well. So if you want to try out Green Chef, you can go to greenchef.com/CTP130 and use code CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Once again, that's greenchef.com/CTP130 and use the code CTP130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. That's once again Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well.
All right. So on that note, I think it's time to talk about just all the different reactions, because that's since the incident actually happened, I think that we have pretty fleshed out thoughts on what occurred. I don't think that there's really that much more to it. But the thing is, with all the different reactions, what people have said, that keeps this train going. It keeps the controversy alive and well. So where do you want to start with this? I mean, I think the place that we have to start, which is really unfortunate, is one Tyson Nash, the Arizona color commentator. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because I think it's pretty obviously stupid what he said, but it's worth calling out. And basically Tyson Nash said on the Coyotes broadcast that because the Ducks players wanted to skill it up, because they wanted to, do the fancy stick handling or whatever, they should expect to be punched in the face. And that's the heart of the matter. I mean, there's a little bit more there, but this notion that you just can't keep playing hockey until the game is over, that if you're the more skilled team, that you can't just keep being the more skilled team, that you have to somehow pump the brakes, right? I don't think that you'd have to embarrass your opponent, but you're up 5-0 because you're the better team, right?
Well, and
it's I just want to say this. Mm-hmm. I almost swore. It's the freaking NHL. Okay, the time to care about being embarrassed or, holding back, hopefully as a pro athlete, you've put that, you left that in Bantams or midget. If you're still worried about that crap by the time you get to the NHL, that just shows you're kind of thin-skinned. Well, and maybe that's just Tyson Nash speaking from experience. Maybe that's because Tyson Nash got embarrassed so many times in his own career. But I hate that idea. It's just senseless to think that wanting to pull off different moves, and apparently it's not about the Michigan, which I don't buy at all, that you should expect to be literally punched in the face. That is what he's saying. That's a joke. Horrendous comment. I don't know what else to say.
How about this? If you don't want them to skill it up on you, why don't you stop them?
Yeah, well, they can't because they suck.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, here's the other thing. He then followed up with Craig Simpson on the Phoenix Hockey something podcast, and essentially doubled down on all of his comments and brought up the fact that this is a team, or was about the smirking and how no one saw that they were smirking.
No. So the clarification was that instead of saying the word "skill it up," he should have said hot dogging.
Yeah, which is where the hot dog comment came from.
And then he went on to say that what people didn't see, which he saw, and I guess he was between the benches during this game, is that the fact that the Ducks were smiling and smirking and celebrating, after their goals or between plays or whatever. And it's just like, man, what does that have to do with anything? Why is this even being mentioned? Jay Beagle assaulted Troy Terry.
Shocker.
That's all that matters.
Shocker. Team that had lost 11 in a row is having a good offensive game, and so they're having fun. Shocker. Yeah. Why is this a bad thing?
Maybe it's not at your expense, Coyotes. Maybe the Ducks are just having fun.
Yeah. This is a young team. They're finally scoring goals. Offense is fun. They're allowed to do that. And, I mean, it's so funny that this, tough guy crowd gets so sensitive about such little bullshit. It's so insane that's essentially what Tyson's Nash role is. So that's where he's coming from. And it's just, I really don't even understand it. I mean, I think that he represents really the issue in all of this, right? And one of the big issues I think that we saw in a lot of our mentions is that, well, what do you expect when you're doing this? And it's like, well, you expect to not get leveled in the face where you have facial injuries.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is just never, if this happened off the ice, if this was just in the parking lot somewhere.
Yeah.
Jay Beagle is arrested for assault.
Yeah. Like
that is assault. Anywhere else except on the ice, that is assault. If this happens in any other league, not talking about hockey, but just MLB, NFL, anything like that, Jay Beagle is probably thrown out for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's just one of those things where why are we even talking about any of this? Why is Tyson Nash spending all this mental energy to talk about the smirks and the smiles and
it's trying to justify his original comments, I think.
Well, no, but why is it so hard to just say that what Jay Beagle did was wrong? Oh, well, the reason why is because first off, he's a team employee, right? He's never going to say a bad thing about the team. But again, all of that stuff that he's saying has no relevance zero relevance to the fact that, again, Jay Beagle punched the lights out of Troy Terry, who was not fighting him back, who was not trying to fight.
And the fact that
end of story.
And the fact in the follow-up that he adds that Trevor Zegras is responsible for that, it is just absolutely unconscionable.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
Like, you're an absolute idiot. The fact that he was given the ability, Craig Morgan asked him saying, hey, at least, like, even if you think that, like Beagle was in the right for starting it or whatever, you understood why he started, he probably should have let up there at the end, right? And he says no.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
He doubles down on the fact that Beagle didn't go too far. Like, how is that your opinion here?
He gave him the out of all outs, which is basically like, well, hey, Craig Morgan did to Tyson Nash, which is like, hey, we all agree, like, regardless of what you think, we all agree that what Jay Beagle did was dumb, right? Like, that's kind of like the gist of what he was saying.
It went too far.
And it's like, nope, didn't even take that. So it's like, you've confirmed that you're a moron in that moment.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, it's just real easy. This is the idiot test. Congratulations, you failed.
Yep.
So I think we can dispense with Tyson Nash here. Any other fallout that has been of interest to you? Any other reactions?
Yeah, I think there's the bigger picture of all of this, which is, how do you stop this from happening?
Well, because as much as we want to talk about and, bring down all these different, dumb arguments, what we would rather have is just this not happen and not have to talk about this.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Troy Terry should be playing every game. So how does that happen? CJKHL just asked us, have we seen Beagle's response? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. But it's the important thing is, how does this not happen in the future? How do we keep this from happening? Because we've already both said neither of us think that enforcers do anything for this. Or it's just unknown, I guess, is the better way to put it. But you and I both basically believe that it probably doesn't impact anything, and it's this never-ending cycle of, well, if we then send our guy after your guy, and then you send yours after ours, and it's just this never-ending cycle that if you have the players police it essentially employs guys to go out there and essentially do exactly what Jay Beagle did. Like, it employs the Zach Ronaldos of the world. It employs all these guys that are going to do whatever they can to stay in the lineup.
Yeah, and I one thing I also want to add is there's this kind of prevailing thought that, well, the players like this. The players are on board. This is how the players see it. They believe in self-policing. And how do I say this without naming names? It's like, just because this is what you've heard on your favorite podcast featuring ex-NHLers doesn't mean that's necessarily how every single NHL player that's either playing now or has played feels. Like, so, have you ever thought about that?
There was actually a very fascinating podcast. It was Agent Provocateur on the SDPN that was Adam Wild and Alan Walsh's podcast, and they had Ken Dryden on today, and it was specifically about headshots in the NHL. And he mentioned this specifically about headshots, and I think it also probably applies to fighting overall, I think. And it was the fact that a lot of the people that want to keep it, a lot of the times when Ken Dryden talks to current players, they grew up in a time that really didn't have fighting. Fighting's really not allowed in junior hockey anymore either. CHL doesn't really have it. You get, I think, 2 or 3 fights or something like that, and you're suspended. Just like regular fights, and then you're suspended. And NCAA hockey doesn't have fighting. Like, a lot, like, fighting in hockey is a very much a NHL, AHL, ECHL thing. And outside of that, it's not really prevalent outside of that. And so a lot of the players really don't care for headshots or just contact to the head. And I think it's a very similar thing with fighting. The people that really fight hard to keep it in the game are the older generation that are now in the management roles, because that's how it was played when they were there. And I think that's the issue that we're running into here. I would bet a lot of the players don't care about fighting. They don't care about having that in the game still. That's not something that they want to have in the game.
I don't know about that. It's just, we don't know, like, why are people assuming that this is the consensus?
Fair.
Fair. Is there a poll? Like, has there been a survey that I'm missing here?
Well, and the other issue is that the PA is failing the rest of the players, because most of the time the guys representing teams for the PA are these guys that are in that role. And so it's not these star players that are more the skilled players. It's the more physical type of players.
The middle class players.
Yeah, and so kind of getting back to how do we stop this moving forward? How do we prevent this from happening if we're both saying that the vicious cycle isn't the way that you stop this? The way that you stop this is by suspending guys. By actively stepping in and suspending guys and making it hurt in their pocket. If Jay Beagle knew that if he jumped into that fight and you just make it an automatic 1-game suspension with potential for it to go to more if you become the aggressor or things like that, and it being reviewed every single time there's a fight, where he knew that he could potentially be missing a 3-game paycheck, maybe he thinks twice about doing that.
Right.
Because he's now wondering, and it's the same concept of, I mean, some people will say, you really think that he's going to care about his paycheck in that moment? I mean, it's happened for a lot of guys with headshots. The same exact conversation that we're having right now about this happened 10 years ago with headshots. And
no one wants to lose money.
Yeah. And so Rule 48 came in. The guys that really couldn't adjust to that eventually saw themselves out of the game because of suspensions, whether that's Matt Cook, whether that's Rafi Torres. The rest of the guys in the league figured out how not to hit guys in the head. This same thing would happen where maybe there would be some guys that would still do it and wouldn't necessarily think about their paycheck when they're fighting, but every new guy coming in would. And that's essentially where I think this needs to go. And maybe people think I'm crazy and I'm soft or whatever for saying fighting just doesn't really have a place. I don't find it entertaining. I don't think it really has a place. It doesn't, in my opinion, make the game more entertaining. This is a personal opinion right now. And I think the way that you stop this from happening, because that's what we're trying to do here, is you make these actions suspendable. Because the issue right now is not a Department of Player Safety issue. Because Department of Player Safety gets their rules, their marching orders from the GM, from the NHL and the PA, and it's an agreed upon thing. And when headshots started getting suspended, it's because the Department of Player Safety came in and they were given the decree to start suspending based upon this new rule, Rule 48. And so if that became a thing that they are now put on them to do, then we would start to see this go out of the game. And so that's why I don't think this is a Department of Player Safety issue. This is an overall NHL issue that, I mean, Jennifer Botterill said it on Sportsnet, that why does the league allow this type of stuff to happen? Why is this something that was not suspended? If the outcome of something that happened on the ice resulted in a player getting hurt to the point where he has to see an eye specialist.
And it was preventable.
Yes. Why do the rules not change? If this is not something that helped prevent or score a goal, and it resulted in a significant injury, why is this something that's allowed to happen? Outside of the fact, and the answer is should never be because it's always been this way. That is not a good enough answer for me. That just frankly isn't. The game needs to change.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Here is what I would love to ask the people who love fighting and want to keep it around. It's like, okay, you love fighting, right? Do you love ex-enforcers having significant mental health issues to the point of committing suicide after their careers are over? Mm-hmm. Do you like CTE? Do you like guys having debilitating brain trauma? Because if you answer yes to fighting, you answer no that you don't like all that stuff, then you're pretty much a hypocrite at that point. Because that's what fighting gives you, right? Repeated blows to the head over and over throughout the course of a career. That is how you have lifelong brain trauma, and that stuff is really, really hard to reverse. And in the case of guys that we've seen over the years, tragically, it cost them their lives. And I'm not trying to be the alarmist here, but that's just the reality. So how can you on one hand say, oh, R.I.P. Derek Bugard, R.I.P. Probert, and then also say, oh, well, yeah, we got to have fighting in the game, right? Like haven't we reached the point of insanity here? So I think the NHL can't, in good faith, say that it cares about player brain health and player long-term health if it has fighting in the sport. And yeah, of course, there's still going to be concussions. There's still going to be, contact. That's part of it. But that doesn't mean you should just give up and say, okay, well, if we have some trauma, if we have some hitting, we're just going to let everything through and we're going to let fighting. You can pick what's going to matter.
Ken Dryden made a really good point. And it was the fact of some people would say, well, you're still always going to have head trauma, no matter what, if you ban all head contact from the league. But he said, but you are significantly reducing the amount of times that it's going to happen.
Exactly. And the amount of blunt force too. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about getting hit in the face. You watch some of these fights now, it's a lot of
helmet hitting.
But it's like that still opens the door, right? Yeah. That opens the door to what we saw on Friday night, and no one wants that.
And here's the other thing with it is realistically, what's the goal of hockey? The goal of hockey is to score more goals than the other team. I think, to put it very simply, it's to score more goals than the other team. Whether that is preventing them from scoring, whether that is scoring goals yourself. A fight happens in between the whistles. It's not something that actually impacts a tangible impact on the puck.
Careful.
The puck going in.
Careful.
No, but a tangible impact going in of the puck going in the net or stopping it from going in your own net.
I don't know, Jake. That's not what I've heard on different broadcasts.
People can say there's intangibles, fine, whatever. But there's no actual tangible impact that you can have from a fight. And so why would I want to have, for instance, this goes back a week when I first brought this up, when Nathan McKinnon not broke his hand, but injured his hand in a fight. Why do I want the players to be in a situation where they could injure themselves in something that doesn't actually impact a goal scoring situation? And to me, that is the thing. I get that there will be injuries. Injuries happen. Shit happens. That's hockey. But that needs to be during the course of play. I am not comfortable with a guy. I mean, if Nathan McKinnon misses the entire playoffs, how much would that suck if it happened because of a fight?
Yeah, and I made this point on Twitter a couple weeks ago that there was a situation late in the game, I'm forgetting which game it was, where there was a little bit of a scuffle with Drysdale and Zegras on the ice. And my whole point was, well, yeah, they don't have Delorier, but this is just hockey. Like, there's going to be skirmishes, there's going to be scrums. And I have been reminded of saying that, after what happened Friday. And it's like, well, no, this is not apples to apples. Like, this is very clearly a completely different scenario that's just beyond the pale. And yeah, I mean, I just think that, to your point, fighting isn't part of the game. And regardless of whether you think that, okay, a fight is going to help, create this momentum and that, it gets the boys going. People love to say that, even though they haven't played or whatever. Guess what? There's other ways to get the boys going. There's other ways to get momentum.
Scoring a goal.
Yeah, and so, the thing is, for me, I like watching a physical game. Like, you want to see the guys competing. You want to see, you want to see big hits, or you want to see battles along the boards or in front of the net. Like, that stuff is really compelling to me, and it gives hockey that edge that people love about it. But I think that fighting is just this stupid cartoon offshoot of that.
I mean, there's always the point that everyone brings up, and yet everyone seems to blow it off in some ways. That when the games matter the most in the playoffs,
no fighting.
There's no fighting. Guys don't fight because it's not worth it. It's not
the reason fighting exists or has made it this far is because for a while it drove interest and it was a moneymaker for the league. That's literally it. The guys got turned into pretty much, punching bags for the bottom line. And look where it's gotten us.
Yep. So
not very far.
Yeah, I think that it's something that the game needs to change. And I think whether you're pro fighting or anti fighting,
the NHL needs to change.
Yeah, sorry, you're correct.
The
NHL, and I think the overarching hockey culture behind the NHL needs to change. And I think that whether you're pro fighting or anti fighting, I think we all agree that the fact that the Terry incident happens without a suspension is a big problem, because
it's an embarrassment.
It is an embarrassment, because that is something that player safety should step in on. Whether or not they think players should be policing or not, that needs to be a suspension.
Yeah, and to his credit, I think Brian Hayward made a great point about this, which is that it's the Department of Player Safety. The whole point is to make players safer. What's the out, how are they doing anything if this is the outcome from this situation? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a whole lot else to say. I mean, I think we've kind of, I don't know if there was any other reactions or tweets or anything else.
I mean, nothing else that I can really think of. I think the one thing that maybe to point out is I think that, and not that this makes it feel any better or worse or anything like that, I think that whether this happened to Troy Terry, whether it happened to Artemi Panarin, whether it happened to Connor McDavid, I think the result's the same of there would be no suspension, because that is how the league views this. And we saw that with Artemi Panarin at the end of the season last year when he was ragdoll by Tom Wilson, and Tom Wilson didn't even get a suspension due to that. He got fined for that, but that was for punching Buchnevich when he was on the ice. It had nothing to do with the Panarin incident. And so this is the league turning a blind eye to all of this. And it was to the point where, remember, the Rangers owner put out a statement saying it's an embarrassment. And, I mean,
I'm curious if we'll get anything from the Ducks like that.
I don't think so. I think if
it doesn't seem to be their style.
I think maybe Pat Verbeek will say something. I think.
Here's one other point I wanted to address, which is the whole Teemu Solani. Look at Teemu, saying that the team needs more toughness and people rallying behind that. And it's like, I don't think that inspires confidence that you would want Teemu Solani as the GM of the team.
No, because that's not someone I want running my team, because it
doesn't matter.
Well, and that's not where hockey's going, and that's
it's just not what wins games.
Yeah,
and the whole thing. I mean, Pat Verbeek, where does he stand on all this? He traded Nick Delorier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that shows how much he cares about this stuff. And the crazy thing, by the way, is that Pat Verbeek was no shrinking flower.
He was a pest.
The little ball of hate.
Yeah, he was a pest.
Yeah, and so if there's anyone who understands this culture, I mean, just look at Pat Verbeek's nose. It's seen some shit.
So it's going to be fascinating to see kind of what he does in the offseason. And
I mean, the hope is that they don't go full Rangers. Right?
Yes, exactly.
But I don't see that happening.
No, I don't necessarily either. I think that if
do you think there's a chance that Delorier comes back?
No, I don't think so.
I
think they could potentially bring back Manson. And maybe, if you want to say you want to have a guy that can maybe fill that role, have it be like a guy like Josh Manson.
Well, a guy who can play.
Yeah, exactly. Someone that actually is good defensively, that actually brings you a lot of value outside of that. Like I said, I don't necessarily care for it. I don't think it matters. But if you're going to do it, bring in Manson. Bring him back. Do that type of thing.
Because Delorier he's just not an NHL.
He's not an NHLer. That's
he's not
the best way to put it.
He's not a driver of success.
Yep. DB Lowry brings it up in our Twitch chat. There's smarter ways to deal with this shit than just signing a bunch of big guys.
Yeah, you don't have to go out and get Ryan Reeves and whatever else that the Rangers did. I don't think the Ducks need to do that. I would rather see the Ducks not play into this game, but I was saying this on Twitter over the weekend, which is that the reason self-policing is seen as needed is because the players are kind of forced to, because the NHL doesn't do shit about it.
Yeah. And granted, part of it is on the players.
Yes.
we the Players Association is a big part.
The players don't have to do this caveman thing. They could just move past it, but that's not going to happen. That's not the culture right now, and it's hard to break that.
Yeah.
And that's why change has to come from the top sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's why banning fighting, because let's face it, 5 minutes, that's a slap on the wrist for considering the potential for injury and the seriousness of the offense, the fact that it has nothing to do with the sport itself. 5 minutes is a slap on the wrist. I don't know what's not as bad as slap, a pinch in the wrist. I don't know.
Yeah.
A tickle? Something even a tickle. Yeah, a tickle under the chin. Just something so benign. And you got to ban it. You got to ban it. That's the only logical outcome. And I think that will happen.
Yep.
It's just the thing is you can't keep waiting. At some point you're going to have to do this. How many more guys do you want to see get hurt before you get there?
Yep. And that's the thing. That's essentially the be-all, end-all of this is, do you want it to be someone actually having a career-threatening injury or life-threatening injury?
It's kind of happened.
Yeah, but that being the reason for this happening, or would you rather get ahead of it? And what are you able to accept on your conscience for that?
Well, what has the NHL shown?
Yeah.
What's the precedent? That they never get ahead of it.
Yep.
They let the problem get worse and worse and worse before they don't have a choice.
Yep. And real quick before we get into some questions, I wanted to bring this up. The real bummer out of all of this,
tell me.
Sorry, not the real bummer, because the real bummer.
I was going to say, I feel like there's only one bummer, which is Terry's face.
Something that, as a fan, I guess, looking at this game that is now being overlooked,
this is a fun game.
How good the TMZ line was. This was the first full game for them.
Oh no! You used the term.
I did.
The TMZ line.
I did it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about hockey before we maybe get into some questions.
Yeah, that line in that game. So I guess let's just really briefly the Ducks game. God, I can't even remember what the game was earlier in the week, because now that Coyotes game.
They played the Stars. They played the Stars.
Oh, they played the Stars twice, and so in the second game against the Stars, they actually Dallas Eakins went with 11 forward, 7D. And that whole fun situation, and decided by shifting some things up, eventually ended up with Terry Milano Zegras as the line. And then follow that up with the Coyotes of putting that line in because they were actually very good against the Stars. And let's just say that as a line, they were excellent. And so I'm looking it up per Money Puck. They were .779 expected goals for, .058 against. Like that's 90% expected goals for percentage.
Yeah.
It's almost like putting your three best players together works well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've reached the point where the evidence for that line is kind of like irrefutable.
Yeah.
Like that's your best line. That's your top line. I'm curious what happens. Well, now, I mean, I don't know when Terry will be back. I don't know, like, Getzlaf is up in the air. Like, that's the real bummer out of all this, right? Outside of the injury, is that, like you said, the line is rolling, and then, last night against Edmonton, you kind of get the skeleton crew where they're because the one thing that was fun to watch about this team has been that line, and we get robbed of that now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a bad outcome. I mean, the game against Edmonton, to touch on that really quickly, I thought that the Ducks actually played an okay first period. I thought that, at 5-on-5, the game was relatively close. John Gibson, maybe not completely up to par. I mean, I don't think any of the goals you can just plainly blame him, but when they're going in over and over, you're just not really getting any value add from your goalie. And it felt like just as the score got bigger and bigger, the Ducks just kind of faded away. And, Zach Aston-Reese gets on the board, that's well and good, but this game just kind of felt never in doubt after that first period, I would say. The Ducks just couldn't generate any offense.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard when you lose Troy Terry.
Yeah, I mean, they were much better in the third period, but in that second period, it was a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, and, that third period, I think to a degree, is the score effects.
Yeah, that's fair.
As well. Yeah, so, I mean, the Edmonton game, not a whole lot to talk about. I thought that, like, for example, against Dallas, I mean, the game that went to overtime, maybe a slightly more encouraging performance. I mean, Jamie Drysdale got, as you called it, a pool shot goal.
It was a pool shot goal.
Off the end boards and then just off of Jake Ottinger.
Yeah.
And then the one thing I've kind of noticed over the week, I need to get clarity on this, by the way. Is it Euro Vakanainen?
I think it's Urho.
Urho
Vakanainen.
Not 100% sure on the name, the first name, but Vakanainen, I think Shattenkirk's looking as bad as he's ever looked right now.
Him and Schuster are just looking awful.
Yeah, the weird thing with Shattenkirk is I feel like his mobility has just disappeared. Like, he is just looking stiff-legged out there. But I think Vakanainen has looked okay. I think, like, I know people are bagging on him a little bit, and maybe part of that is because he's been put in bad spots next to Shattenkirk, but he's kind of like a toolsy type player. Like, he skates well. He can look the part. Now the question is just where does he fit into all this long term? But looking like maybe a decent pickup for Pat Verbeek there.
Yeah, I think he's looked solid enough. Oh, one other thing to mention is John Gibson was back on his crazy shit in the second Dallas game.
Yeah, played real well.
He played extremely well in that game. Was not as good in the Edmonton game.
Back on his crazy shit.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of the John Gibson experience at this point. Is you kind of just you get it some nights, and other nights it's just not going to be there. I mean, I can't entirely blame him for the Edmonton game just because the Oilers were kind of a machine. It just felt like every time they had an opportunity to create a great scoring chance, they did. But yeah, hasn't really been. I guess the other piece of news is that Max Jones is looking unlikely to return this season. He's got that injury, and the timeline. It was always going to be really tight for him to play again this year, and it looks as though it's not happening, which sucks because it would have been nice to see Jones and kind of just where he's at in his development and his rehab. But now he gets the entire offseason to really kind of just. I mean, first off, now he's not having to deal with this kind of racing against time, trying to get back and relax a little bit. And hopefully we'll see him next year and see what he can do in a depth role.
Yep. I guess no, we can save this for another time. I was gonna say maybe the Bruce Boudreau thing real quick, but
what Bruce Boudreau thing?
The fact that Bruce might be available in summer.
Yeah, it's not 100% that he's going back to Vancouver. The question is just, would you want him to be the Ducks coach if he were available next year? I'm of two minds on this. I think that Bruce Boudreau is a good coach. I think he would make the Ducks better But keep in mind, like we're going from Aikens to Boudreaux here, so the bar is not necessarily the highest. I would just kind of like to see a coach who's almost more at the beginning of their career, just someone who's got kind of a fresher outlook, even though, again, I really like Boudreaux. Just someone that it's like you're anchoring yourself to this guy in a way, and it's someone who's going to be there long term. I feel like with Boudreaux, I don't know how much longer he's got coaching the game. He's 67. I feel like he would rather go to a team that can really win right now. Maybe the Ducks are that, but I would just rather see kind of this next era of the Ducks really have a coach that's really tied to that identity. And I just don't know if Boudreaux is necessarily that guy. And I understand that some of this stuff might not matter and that it's a little hokey, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, and I think my view of it is I think Bruce is a top 5 coach in the league, personally. I think he's that good of a head coach. I think he's able to adjust his style to whatever team. And so I think there is some validity to the argument of wanting Verbeek to pick the guy, essentially his guy, to be with the team, someone new, someone fresh, someone things like that. But if Bruce Boudreaux is the best coach available, and if he's available, I think you have to at least explore the opportunity there because I think he is that good of a coach. So I think that's kind of where I'm at with it, is that I personally would love to see him come back. I get the argument from the perspective of you want Verbeek to have kind of his own guy.
Well, also I think for fans, right, it's kind of like it's a tough sell to just be going through this carousel of the same coaches over and over and over.
But Bruce Boudreaux was like, it was funny. I was at the game on Sunday, and I was looking up, and it kind of hit me just kind of like looking at it. It's like, crap. Every single full season that Bruce Boudreaux was the head coach of the Ducks, where he didn't come in halfway through the season, they won the division. Yeah. Every single season, they won the division underneath him. Yeah. That type of consistency is not easy to do, regardless of your roster. To be able to win that many games consistently, and whether people want to say, well,
it helps to play in the Pacific Division.
Yeah, fair, but still, like those were 100+ point teams.
Sure, they were good teams,
like very good teams. So. Yeah. I part of me is just like, well, yes, but I think that maybe in hindsight, there's a lot of people that have changed their opinion on him.
Look, all I'll say is this. Randy Carlyle has a Stanley Cup.
Oh, God
Bruce Boudreaux does not.
Who's employed?
Do it a third time.
Who's
Go
employed?
for the hat trick.
Who's employed?
Go for the hat trick, please. Please.
It's funny that no one's even, like Randy Carlyle has not been mentioned once.
Yeah, like he's available.
Like he's hanging out. How many coaching vacancies have there been since he was let go?
There have been quite a few.
And I don't think he's been considered for one of them.
So the one thing I've been getting asked about, like on and off lately, is Joel Bouchard. Is he a candidate? Does he have an inside track? And look, the goals are in a playoff push. Like, do you think that's even a possibility that Bouchard is going to be the head coach of the Ducks next year?
No.
I don't think so either, and my reasoning is this. It's well and good if he gets the San Diego Gulls to the Calder Cup. They win it all. He's still never been an NHL head coach, and I just don't think his AHL resume really screams you have to promote this guy.
I also don't think Pat Verbeek has necessarily ties to him where that's his guy if he's going to bring a guy up from the AHL.
But I'm just saying on the merit of his resume and on top of what you're saying, I just don't really see it. And I think that the Ducks want to be good next year. I think that that's how this thing is aligning. And I just don't think you take a risk on a guy like Bouchard who just really, the resume coaching-wise is just not completely there to say that, oh, this is a guy who's going to be able to position the team to win right now. Could happen, but I don't trust it personally.
Yep. All right. Want to get to any questions? Just kind of quick little Q&A session.
Sure.
All right. So people in the Twitch chat, throw in your questions. We'll get to them. We'll go to Discord. I believe Justin's Dead Wings and Quacker had a really long question, but we actually talked about it a bit. So just want in our Discord already. So not really going to go through it. Just want to let them know. Definitely acknowledging that it's there. JJ Stone Drums says, would Gibson have killed Beagle if he was out on the ice there?
I would rather not see anyone else have to deal with that.
Very true. Correct. Jassy said, do you guys know what goes into a player switching from defense to forward? What attributes do they look for in a D-man that can translate to a forward? Hunter Drew is the example.
That's a very interesting question.
I mean, Nick Delorier is really the only guy that I can think of that transitioned from defenseman to forward.
I think it's a combination of things. I think usually Delorier is kind of the exception to this rule, I would say. Usually defensemen who go up to forward are usually guys who have some offensive ability, and the coach doesn't fully trust them to be
Brent Burns
a regular defenseman. Yeah, Brent Burns. But they do want them in the lineup, and so they move them up. And I think that you've seen that with Brent Burns. Mark Streit back in the day was a good example of this. Delorier, I think, has switched to forward as more so about the fighting than anything else.
Yeah.
It's just easier to be a fighter as a forward than a D-man.
Yep.
So, but that's a good question, though. I like that one.
CCO says, when will John Gibson go full Jordan Binnington and assault a player to bring forth the energy the Ducks need to win? I'd rather that not happen.
Yeah.
I think we've made our kind of points on fighting kind of clear. So for those of you, though, that was from our Patreon Discord. For those of you on YouTube, yes, we're on YouTube, youtube.com/CrashPond, or if you're on your favorite podcast services, you can find us each and every Monday at 8 p.m. at twitch.tv/CrashPond, where you can help support the show. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime Gaming sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. You can also hit follow on the Twitch channel, which allows you to be notified when we go live. But by supporting us, you get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name. So DB Lowry says, do you think if the NHL actually codified the code, do you think that could be a sort of middle ground, i.e. suspension for guys who throw punches on players who don't drop their gloves or punch guys while they're on the ice, etc.?
I mean, that's an interesting thought, because the problem with the code is that no one seems to agree on it. So putting it in writing. But the thing is, there would still be a code between players, right? Like this isn't the end of the code, even if the NHL writes it down. I like the thought, but I just let's not leave it up to these guys to make these decisions.
The code. I mean, basically, what you're saying there, or what he's kind of saying there, is you're basically writing this into the rule book.
Yeah, but I don't think that really changes much.
No, well, I think at least writing into the rule book,
it helps suspend guys.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that if you at least want to write into the rule book saying, hey, if you're punching guys without a guy without his gloves off, that's a suspension. That gives the Department of Player Safety something to go off of, basically. So
sure.
At least that might be a starting point if you want to go with that.
That would be better than what we have now.
Correct. Let's see. Dalton Keys asks, what Ducks players are eligible to play for the goals in the playoffs? And who, if anyone, do you think gets sent down for the playoffs?
I think only two got sent down at the deadline.
I think it was Benoit, wasn't it Gouli?
Yeah.
I think it was I think it was Benoit and Gouli. So I think it's just really, I think Gouli's already down there. I'll take a quick look right now, but I think it's just Simon Benoit. You
will never.
That's just something that's in the back of my head that will never go away.
Yeah, because those are the only two names I remember seeing move on deadline.
Yeah, because the key to remember is that guys, if they're on the NHL roster, have to be sent down to the AHL roster on deadline day in order to be AHL playoff eligible. It looks like on the 21st it was Buddy Robinson and Simon Benoit that were sent down on paper transactions.
Yeah, and Buddy Robinson. Didn't stick around for long after that.
Yeah.
Good question though.
PC Main said, he said, shout out to the guy he saw at a Ducks game in a Kevin Boyle jersey, probably the most random jersey he's ever seen. So his question is, who is the weirdest jersey you've ever seen at a game?
Oh God, man, that's a good question. I don't have any names off the top of my head, but the last Ducks game I was at not that long ago, I saw at least 4 or 5 different teams. I saw a Blackhawks jersey, a Red Wings jersey. I think I saw a Pittsburgh jersey. It's just what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Stop it.
This is not the weirdest jersey. This is not even a jersey. But the game I was at on Sunday, sitting 3 rows away from you was Brian Allen.
Oh.
Yeah. Just saw a very tall guy walk by. I was like, oh, he looks familiar. Oh, that's Brian Allen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
deep cut.
Not necessarily a jersey, but a random former player.
There you go.
Yeah. Did not get recognized probably by anyone but me.
You never know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Don't be so disrespectful.
Fair enough. Sith Lord Buscemi said, what are some non-previously mentioned moves, i.e. Chychrun, Fiala, etc., would you like to see Verbeek do to round out the roster? I think, for me, Travis Sanheim's a guy I've really fallen in love with a bit.
Yeah, I've actually managed to talk you off of Chychrun.
You have a little bit.
Yeah, this is one of my big victories of the season. So Jake has been adamant that the Ducks need to get Jakob Chychrun, and I'm probably going to write something about this at some point. But Chychrun's a good player. He's in that age range you want. He's locked up to a reasonable deal. It's just that the Coyotes are asking for like an Eichel return for this guy, who's like a good defenseman. Like there's just nothing really remarkable about him. Like the cost to me doesn't match the player, and so. With the Travis Sanheim, I think he's older than Chychrun.
Yeah, by about a year and a half maybe.
But he's a lot better, and he might not cost you the same.
Yeah.
So I think, though, that I don't have any specific names. I really do think, though, and this is something we've already seen from Pat Verbeek, is really just got to round out that forward depth. You just need more quality NHL level players in that bottom six, in that fourth and third lines. And you've kind of seen it in these games. I don't even really know if the numbers bear this out. Now I should look it up. But I think just, people give me a lot of crap for the what I said about Isaac Lundestrom on duck calls on Thursday. Or was it Thursday?
20% shooting?
I had to kind of eat some crow from my usual Lundestrom critiques. But I do think that it's really helpful for a guy like Isaac Lundestrom to play between two real NHLers in Zach Aston-Reese and Dominic Simone. So just if they can continue to fill out the bottom of the lineup just with guys who can play, let alone a guy like Simone or Aston-Reese with good underlying numbers, like you need that because that takes pressure off of your top six to just perform every single night.
Yep, exactly. And I think I've been pleasantly surprised by Aston-Reese and, They've basically hit kind of where I thought they were with Simone and Aston Reese. Like I think
with Aston Reese, it's funny because you watch him play because like I remember looking up his RAPM charts, but when the Ducks got him, and it's a guy who's really really good at suppressing opposing offense, but really really poor at driving offense. And when you watch him play, it kind of makes sense because nothing really happens when he's out there.
Yeah,
he just gets it. He fills the lanes, he gets on guys, finishes his checks, but doesn't make any plays. Like he's just a guy who gums up the game. And I mean, as a depth guy, like that's fine. If you can just play to a draw every time you're out there, like you need that. you can't have any weak links, and he is not that.
Yep. All right. Austin Price asks, what defines success for the rest of the season for the Ducks?
That's a fun question. I would say that what defines success is just going to be, I think, just the way in which they play, the tactics that they take, the lineup combinations that they use. And unfortunately, this doesn't really fall on the players, but I think they just need to try stuff. They need to continue to be creative with their line combos. I mean, now we'll see with Terry, but put together a Terry Milano Zegras. Get creative on the power play. Maybe try to go 5 forwards, right? Like just do stuff like that. I don't think they will, but just continue to play a fun brand of hockey. I think it's in a way that's also competitive.
Yep.
Right. Not just gimmicky. And you're seeing the Canadians do that very well.
Wow.
I mean, beating
Shocker.
the Lightning
Shocker.
on Saturday, great win. But yeah, so stuff like that.
All right. M. Hendrickson 61 said, y'all touch on this a little bit, but what do you make of Solani's remarks on how we need a couple of domies on our roster? American Freeman seemed to think that it's an indictment of Verbeek's performance as GM so far, and while I thought his remarks seemed odd, I find it hard to believe that Teemu would be indicting a guy he just helped hire.
I don't have a problem believing that Teemu would be mad at Verbeek because, like, you can help hire the guy, but also then disagree with his decisions. Like,
Correct.
Those two things don't have to line up. And we've seen Teemu be critical of the franchise in the not so distant past. And so I have no problem believing that he doesn't like the fact that this happened, that they traded out toughness. And, like for a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, what is that 3rd round pick doing for the Ducks right now? And it's just like, forget the nonsense. But so what do I make of that? I mean, I just think that Solani's part of this culture that we all that we spent an hour kind of railing against, which is the feel that there's this need to have these guys. And I don't think that like using up 2 roster spots on enforcers is going to change anything. It's going to make the Ducks a worse team, I'll tell you that much.
Yep. Jin and Casey said if the rumors are Zaka, this is more a statement, but what do you think of the rumors? I guess Zaka's possibly available. Do you think he'd be a good fit with the Ducks?
Ooh, good question. I haven't
have not seen that rumor at all, but interesting.
I haven't thought about Pavel Zacha at all.
As you're furiously typing to look up his RAPM chart.
Well, first off, I need to remember how old he is because that would change things.
He's probably like 23.
He is 24.
He's got a year.
He's got a year left. He's gonna be. Let's see here. He's gonna be. Oh wow, he's gonna be 25 in 2 days.
Okay.
So he's really 25.
Yeah.
He's got a year. He's on to the last year of his deal. He's an RFA this summer with arbitration rights. I don't know what his qualifying offer would be, but his cap hit right now is $2.25 million.
So it's probably gonna be maybe like 2.5-ish, something like that.
Yeah. So it seems a little pricey for a player like that. I mean, presumably, if you get him on a shorter term kind of bridge type deal, you're getting his best years. But is he worth the squeeze? Is the question.
It just depends on what the trade would be. What type of assets are you having?
Is that the kind of scenario where you're trading Max Comtois, like a hockey
maybe
kind of disgruntled players type deal?
I mean, that might be where it's at.
I mean, looking at Zacha's RPM chart this year, at least. He's a fine 5-on-5 player. I mean, he's above replacement level defensively and decent at driving shot attempts, not so great at driving expected goals, but I mean, looks a lot better than Max Comtois. I'll say that. Looking the last couple years though, maybe not quite as impressive. I mean, 2 years ago it was really, really bad. Just not really a guy I'd be
targeting,
spending major assets on and targeting. Yeah.
Yep. Jen and Casey said, sorry, I was just responding to you all talking about possibilities other than Chikrin, and they had mentioned his name on 32 Thoughts, which is why it was on their mind. I think that's probably going to do it for us tonight. We have to bring up the food channel. So we don't have, we don't have a city.
Oh, is it mine? Oh yeah, so my infuriating take on ramen the other day.
Go ahead.
No, this isn't an actual take. I just want to make this clear.
Lewis said in the Twitch or in the Discord of is ramen a soup, and this is all because of you.
Well, is it a soup or is it broth noodles?
It's a soup.
Is it broth noodles?
Broth noodles is a soup. What is chicken noodle soup?
The way I see ramen, first off, do we know it to be a soup? But also, when I look at ramen visually, I see more noodle and other stuff than I do broth. Like the ratio to me is tilted towards non-broth, which makes me believe that the broth is more of a support player, more of a Robin than a Batman. And so I think going off of that
broth
logic,
flavors the noodles. Without the broth, the noodles don't have flavors.
Is it broth noodles? Is the question.
Oh my God.
I think it's a fair question. I just want to be open. I want to be honest. And I think we need to have intellectual honesty here. That's all.
It's soup. It is soup.
Okay. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm trolling.
Yeah.
I have to say this now. Otherwise, I get backlash. I have to actually out myself, which sucks.
Yeah. You are. Because is chicken noodle soup?
Now is cheese pizza pizza? That one I think
no,
is
cheese
way
pizza
more
is pizza. Stop. It's in
bread.
the name.
It's cheese
in
bread.
the name. It's cheese. It has marinara under the cheese. Between the cheese and the bread, it's cheese pizza.
I mean, fine. You're entitled to your opinion. That's okay.
Pizza, and I've brought this up before. Pizza was invented in Italy. Naples has a specialty of Neapolitan style pizza. That is pizza at its finest. And the staple of Neapolitan pizza is a margherita pizza. What is a margherita pizza? It
Look,
is
Jake,
sauce, cheese, and basil.
I know how you feel right now, and I'm walking in your shoes right now. I'm walking in your shoes. I'm walking in I don't know what kind of shoes you wear, but I'm walking in those right now. And I just want to let you know that just because it's always been this way, we spent an hour talking about this. Just because it's always been this way, it doesn't mean it has to keep being this way. You know?
I'm in shambles right now.
Just, you know.
Here, PC Main said, is the Little Caesars calzone pizza a pizza or a calzone? It's Little Caesars, so it's not pizza.
We don't have to hide anymore.
You're just brushing off my like blatant disrespect of
Little Caesars.
Little Caesars.
Is it a pizza or a calzone?
It's Little Caesars, so it's not actual pizza. Doesn't count.
Ooh, that's a little spicy. What's your favorite hot sauce?
Probably sriracha.
Is that a hot sauce though?
Yes.
It's not very hot.
It's a.
Is it a hot sauce even? Is it even a hot? Can you call it that in good faith?
It is made out of chili paste.
Okay, fair enough. Are you sure? Is your final answer sriracha though?
Yes, sriracha. I'd say my second would be Frank's Red Hot Buffalo Sauce.
Buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
I just like the regular Frank's Red Hot.
Sriracha is a type of hot sauce.
Okay, I'll give you that it's in that galaxy.
It's made from a paste of chili peppers, distilled vinegar, garlic, sugar, and salt.
Yeah,
it's
I'm seeing
chili.
I'm
chili
seeing
peppers.
some support for Tapatio. I used to be like a big Tapatio guy, and I don't know. I grew up, I guess. Cholula is a big one. But I feel like Cholula and Tapatio are kind of interchangeable to me.
Are we going to now have Turtle of the Week also? Someone's requesting this, and I think the Turtle of the Week is you.
What?
I'm yeah, the Turtle of the Week was you.
I don't know what this means.
You put it in our
You should
Discord.
probably explain to the listeners what turtle means.
No, they don't need to be. If you want to learn what being turtled means, join the Patreon.
Okay. Oh, we're getting cities. Oh crap.
Oh god.
No. Why are you guys doing this to us?
No, I think we're good. But yeah, you got the ultimate turtle, and I believe you tried to delete it, and it got screenshotted.
No, I didn't try to. I threatened to delete.
Oh.
You got to threaten. You got to threaten the shooting option. Just to get the pass off.
It's the threat, like having Nick Delorier on the bench.
Yeah. 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 I threatened to delete it, and guess what? It didn't get deleted. It still got screenshotted, and I'm still in shambles and turtled. Wow. Funny how life just is so symmetrical and poetic.
I think that's a great place to end.
I do want to apologize to the Tapatio supporters, though. I didn't mean to say that you're less mature or not as grown up. I just liked Tapatio when I was younger, and I happen to be older now and don't like it as much. But don't read into that.
I'd like to apologize to the Tapatio supporters.
Look, what I've realized with these food takes is that I tend to burn bridges.
Your take, the thing with your food takes is I just say I like something. I don't necessarily go out and just trash it. I don't say eggs are trash. I say I personally don't like them. It is what it is. You, on the other hand, decide to say, this is awful.
Yeah, but there's a reason you don't like it, though. I think you just saying, "Oh, it's my personal preference," is a cop out. It's well, yeah, no shit. It's you that's saying it. But there has to be you didn't just fall out of the sky and start not liking eggs. There must be a reason you don't like them.
Yeah, they don't taste good to me.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So that is trashing.
Jen and Casey saying we need a notes app apology from you.
Why do I love that so much?
Yeah.
The notes app apology.
the TB Lowry, the culture of CTB has to change. It's kind of
the thing is, I never heard the notes app apology thing until recently, from Casey in our chat in our Discord. But you immediately know what it means because it means an apology that's not actually meant or heartfelt. Mm-hmm. So I love that.
Yes.
So yeah,
by the way, Lou's asking if we can confidently say if any hot sauce is good. Yes. Be a grown adult, Lou. Hot sauces are good.
Yeah. How do we feel about Tabasco?
It's good.
It's a lightning rod.
It's good on oysters.
Yeah. Wow. Look at you. Look at you. I'm proud of you.
Some Tabasco, some lemon.
With an adult food
Well,
take.
I know. I have them every once in a while.
You know, this is progress. You're moving on up. You really are. I'm so much more confident now in your future.
I'm having a child, and for you, the thing that makes me more mature isn't having a child. It's my oyster take.
I am more confident in your child's upbringing now because of this take. Look, don't ask how, but the metrics do bear it out. Okay, we should wrap up. I try to wrap up.
We brought some levity to the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean it was a heavy hour, you know, so trying to end it on a fun note. But it is getting late, and I would like to go eat. So, on that note, let's wrap this thing up. If you have been enjoying the show, if you have, this is a terrible take from Liz. Why does food need to be hotter? Because spice, it just enhances it. It elevates it. Anyway, I'm done. If you have been enjoying this show and you want to help support it, you want to help it keep going, travel through the trials and tribulations, there is a great way to do so. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. For $1 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord server, which is a ton of fun. You get to connect with other diehard Ducks fans. You get to learn about turtling, the Turtle Committee. You get to talk about food. We have a food channel. You get to hear all kinds of takes, all kinds of wild takes. The hockey talk, though, is really the bread and butter. People are in there all day, every day, talking hockey. It's the best. That's for $1 a month. Now, for $5 a month, you get access to the Discord, but also 2 bonus episodes where we go more in depth on the NHL as a whole. We'll do league-wide rankings. So if you kind of enjoy the way that we talk about the Ducks, well, on these episodes, I would say we bring it to other teams and to the league as a whole. It's a lot of fun, and with the playoffs around the corner, I think this is actually the month where we do our playoff predictions episode, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I thank you. It's nice of you to acknowledge and appreciate me. And then for $15 a month,
Wow.
you are really, really, really helping us out, and we tremendously appreciate it. That's all at patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, you don't have to pledge any money monthly to support us. You can still check us out on Apple Podcasts. Leave a rating and a review. If you leave a review, we will read it on the show. Those are a ton of fun to read. They're just really heartwarming. The more inside jokes you can work in, the better. We really appreciate hearing from you guys there. You can also leave us a rating on Spotify. Spotify has a way of doing that now. They have joined the 21st century. You can also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. You can see the video version of the show, which is what the people in the live stream are seeing each time. Make sure to subscribe there and turn on your notifications. Now, a new and exciting, well, it's not new, but we've enhanced a way that you can support us. If you go to crashthepond.com, first off, our website, which is great, highly recommend for Ducks articles. You can also find the podcast episodes there. Crashthepond.com/shop. We've made some fun new additions. Stickers of our beautiful logo. I think Jake actually showed this on the last show. Why don't you show them again? Yeah, so if you want to put it on a water bottle, your laptop, your fridge, what have you, they're pretty cool. You can get them in orange and black, so the traditional Ducks colors, or an eggplant and jade, like Jake has, my personal favorite. We also have a Turtle Committee sticker.
We do. And a Turtle Committee shirt.
Yeah, and a new addition to the shop is we've got coffee mugs. And so same thing with those. You can get it in the eggplant and jade or in the orange and black. If you get a coffee mug, please take a picture of it and tag us on Twitter at Crash the Pond. You can find it Crash the Pond on Facebook as well.
I do want to mention the stickers because people are saying the sticker is massive on my water bottle. This is the big size. I think there are multiple different sizes. Yes.
Yeah. Don't worry. We'll make it work for you. And lastly here, we're on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I am on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. We would love to hear from you guys. And on that note, that will do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you next Monday. Have a good one.
Bye.